Alright, so this video, what we're going to look at is hip alignment in the squat. Now, one thing you want to check first is just how the patient's hips are in neutral, or not the patient, rather the client. You want to see what's they're comfortable with, how do they like to squat. So what I'll ask is, I'll just ask them to squat. So Brad, just go ahead and squat for me. Good. And what you can see here is his hip width is pretty much shoulder width apart. He has a pretty good squat. His back doesn't arch too much there, so it looks pretty solid. Now, if we were to kind of hike these up a little bit, you do see one leg is externally rotated more than the other. I would say his right's more externally rotated. So now that's something we'll have to dive into deeper on an assessment when we check that out. But for now, we'll just have it squat and look at it. So squat again for me. Good. And you can even see on his this leg here, he actually turns out even more when he goes down. So these are all little cues to say something's going on in one of these hips. We just got to break it down further. One thing that you will see when people start to squat heavy is their hips will start to turn in. So go ahead and squat down, and then when you come up, let your knees come in. Good. So when you see internal rotation on the squat, on the lift, that's kind of not maximal, right? That we know that the external rotators are our big muscles. We want them to activate. We want them to be the powerhouse. Now, some people have naturally internal rotation of the hip, and when you do squat, you do go into somewhat internal rotation as you squat. If this is your pelvis, your hips move down and they go into internal rotation. But it shouldn't be a driver when you're squatting. When you see that in competition or something like that, either someone's not having the power generation or there's something structurally going on in there that you have to dive into. One cue I like to do, and I'm sure Brad does it, is when they come up, tell them to screw their legs into the ground. So go ahead and demonstrate that. So if they screw their legs into the ground, they'll force external rotation of the femur, and this is kind of optimal for hip strength and power.